discuss what is linguistics and how the meaning of linguistics has layers of meaning in it. So in the word linguistics, we have the word linguist, and linguist is a person who studies language scientifically. At the same time, another meaning is linguist is a person who who speaks more than one language, and we have a different word for that: polyglot. Poly means many and glot means language. So a person who speaks more than one language is a polyglot. Then we know that inside linguistics we have a word like linguistic, but linguistic is an adjective. We can use like linguistic study, like this. And we have this root lingua, and the meaning of this root is tongue. Now when I say tongue, then the meaning of tongue is not this physical object that we have. That is also one meaning of tongue, but here the meaning of tongue is language. So multiple layers of meanings are there in this word linguistics. We have seen that how we can define linguistics, and we have two-word definition, three-word definition, we have one sentence definition, and we have also discussed uh, the scope of linguistics, like what we do in linguistics. So broadly, when we say linguistics analyzes scientifically, then three things they come into our mind. First is language form, language meaning, and language in context. So when we talk about language form, then we are into formal linguistics, and we have phonetics and phonology, morphology, and syntax. And when we talk about language meaning, and when we talk about language in context, then we are into functional linguistics, and here we have fields like semantics and pragmatics. We have also discussed that what do we mean by the word scientific, because generally when we use the word scientific, people think that we are talking about laboratories, we are talking about experiments, we are talking about test tubes, fine. We are like talking about chemicals. So that is obviously one meaning, and that is associated with the word science. But when we say scientific, then more importantly, we are talking about a study that is without prejudice, that is without subjectivity. So when we study linguistics, then we study things objectively. That is the meaning of the word scientific. And we have seen with different example that that how we can observe language data, how we can form a hypothesis. Hypothesis is a formal statement, or you can say a guess that we make when we start studying language or any other thing. So initial guess that you make, that is the basis of your hypothesis. And then you test your hypothesis whether your guesswork is correct or not. You refine it, and then you conduct a research. So we have seen that how with limited data, first we first we form a hypothesis, and then when we have more data, then we can refine it, we can test it. And we have also used this metaphor that human mind is a sophisticated translating machine. So we are using this metaphor translating machine for our human mind, because when we speak, we are actually producing sound waves, and these sound waves are in some sound pattern, and those sound patterns are recognized as speech sounds. And further, out of those speech sounds, you you recognize whether those speech sounds are words, phrases, or sentences, and how they are corresponding to meaningful thoughts and ideas. So this is one entire process, and it looks like a very lengthy process, but it happens in a fraction of second. So it's not like a very lengthy thing that when I say something, then automatically you understand it. If you say something, then automatically I understand it within a fraction of second, millisecond. So this is a very fast process that we have, and but we can use this metaphor that human mind is a sophisticated translating machine. And generally in translation, what we do, we translate from one code to another code. We translate from one language to another language. Let's take the example of Hindi and English. So there are lots of translation available, and a translator translates one code into another. But when we say that language is first realized as speech waves or sound waves, then again how sound waves they are translating into meaningful thoughts. So that is again a type of translation that we have. We also discussed Saussurean's view that language is a psychological property of human beings. And when we talk about psychological property, then we are talking about mind. That's something that's not visible. Brain you can see, but you can't exactly locate where a particular word is situated in that brain. You know many words from any language, but if I ask that which word is located where in your brain, then you say I don't know. Even the best neurosurgeon will not tell you that which word is associated where. So that's the thing. So we can roughly mark that, okay, this particular portion in the left hemisphere, because brain is divided into two parts, right hemisphere and left hemisphere is responsible for the language development. So we can mark a portion like, okay, here this language is situated. But to exactly to know that where which word is associated, where which sentence is associated, is not possible. So language is a psychological property of human beings, and to know the depth of the mind is also a very difficult task. It's not easy to know, and till date we do not know about brain in this nitty-gritty. We have seen the concept of sign, and Saussure says that everything depends upon relations. We have seen that how one sign interacts with other sign. So we have two type of semantic relations that we have discussed, and those relations are signifier and of signified, that is inherently situated in the sign. But when it comes to semantic relations, then we have paradigmatic and syntagmatic relations that we have. And what happens actually when there is a syntagmatic and paradigmatic relation, text comes into form. That means meaninglessness comes into form. So otherwise we have three words like John loves Mary. Now there are three words, but when they are in this sequence and when they interact with each other, John is interacting with loves is interacting with Mary, and Mary is somewhere interacting with John. So it's like a circular function that John loves Mary. Now they are uh, they are in one let's say horizontal zone, and they are interacting with each other, and because of this interaction we know the meaning that, okay, there is some person named John, and that person is in love with another person, and that person is Mary. So that's why meaning comes into being, and Saussure talks about in the semantic relations. And here, because it is on the horizontal zone, so we can say that this is syntagmatic relationship. Otherwise we can have a paradigmatic relationship that is on the vertical axis. Now we also discussed this thing that that synchronic and diachronic, and we have discussed that the word chrono means time, and when we talk about sin, syn, that means single point of time. synchronic, single point of time we are talking about. Now single point of time is not the point like on the needle that we are talking about. Single point of time can be 1 year, single point of time can be the present day language, and dia means through and across. So across time, that is your diachronic. So two types of study we can conduct in linguistics. One is synchronic, that is the single point of time. If I want to work on a language, then I will collect the data by the speakers, present day speakers. I will not look that language in a book that is published 200 years ago, 50 years ago. And if I do that, if I look at the data that is there in a book published, uh, let's say 50 years ago, 100 years back, then this type of study is diachronic, through time, across time, that I'm comparing that how people are using this word. For example, there is a word like companion, and the meaning of companion is someone who is with you. That is the definition of companion. But if you try to find out the meaning few centuries back, then you find that the meaning of companion was someone who eats bread with you. That is your companion. But now we won't use in that sense, because this come root has been derived from con, 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 that means with, and pan, pane, means bread. So in Italian, so with bread, someone who eats bread with you, that is the meaning of companion. But now the meaning is changed. So if you do this type of thing, like companion uh, previously was someone who eats bread with you, and now companion means someone who is with you. That type of study is through time, across time you are doing. But you are simply want to know that what people speak, and they say companion means someone who is with you. That type of study is a synchronic, single point of time. Then you have two types of approaches that we have. And what type of approaches that we have? That is a descriptive approach that we have. So again, these two approaches, they fall under synchronic. So the way we work on a language, descriptive is you describe the language. Description is like you go to the field, you talk to the native speakers, and you ask them what do they speak. You collect data, you record them, and consciously, unconsciously, what you hear and what you hear, what you sense from the native speakers, that approach is your descriptive approach. But prescriptive is you are telling the rules. You are telling the rules. If you want to make active from passive, or passive from active, then you need to do like this. For example, John loves Mary, and if I say like okay, make it passive, then you will say Mary is loved by John. So you know, like because it is in the simple present tense, that's why you have used is auxiliary, and then you have used the past participle form of love, that is loved, and you have also used by. Fine. So this type of thing is known as prescriptive. And most of the grammar books that you have studied in your school days, they are prescriptive in nature. Descriptive is simply providing the description. Even if a speaker speaks incorrect language, then you will also collect that data. You mention it that this is also a variation. For example, there is a possibility that there is a sir and sure, and you find like certain speakers, they do not make any difference between sir sound and sure sound in a particular language. Then you can observe that like sham, like evening, so it can be said sam and sham both. If this is the case, you will not say no, you are saying wrong, sam is incorrect pronunciation, you should learn to speak sham, not sam. This is not the work once you are doing the descriptive study. these type of things are prescriptive in nature. You are prescribing rules. You are telling what is correct, what is wrong. Then another is form and function. Like, what is the difference between form and function? So these are general dichotomies, like opposites that we have seen, and now we are reiterating. So in a descriptive approach, we want to investigate purely formal aspects. What are formal aspects? How language is structured, how language is formed. So what do you need to know if you want to study the structure of language? You need to know the sounds, you need to know the words, you need to know the sentence structure. So this is all. So this is the formation of the language. But when it comes to function, that what thing you can say in which context, then it is functional. So for example, in English, like if there is a description like where you can use how do you do, and this description is mentioned that in this situation you can say how do you do. Once you meet a person first time, you do not know a person, then you start your conversation with how do you do. Then what would be the ideal reply for how do you do? Then the ideal reply for how do you do is also how do you do. Fine. Then how do you do is different from how are you. So if you study these type of things, then these are language functions, that how language is used in different social context. That is your functional approach, that is for communicative purposes. So this is again a difference between a formal approach and the functional approach. Then again another dichotomy is language specific, comparative. So in a descriptive synchronic approach, we want to investigate merely one language. So we can study one language. For example, you can study Dogri. At the same time, you can also study the difference between Kandi Dogri and Pahari Dogri. So again, you are contrasting two dialects. You can also study the difference between Dogri and Punjabi. So that is again a comparative. So it's like a uniform language specific study you can also do, that you are focused on only one language. At the same time, you can also compare other languages as well. For example, in Hindi, boy is ladka. In Punjabi, it is munda. Fine. In Dogri, it is jagat. Fine. So in some dialects, so you can say like in one language it is munda, in another language it is ladka, in Rajasthani it is chora. Fine. In some of the dialects of Hindi, it is pronounced as moda. So again, one word and different types of expressions you have for that particular word. So that is again a comparative, that you are comparing that, okay, in such language we have these different type of words. So that study you can also conduct. Then another dichotomy is applied, non-applied. We want to apply the results of our study in foreign language teaching, translation, dictionary compilation, police work, law enforcement. So you have studied one particular language and you want to apply it. You want to apply your findings once you are teaching a foreign language. So for example, you have linguistic knowledge, and certain students, they have a problem in pronunciation. So you can apply your linguistic knowledge in order to correct the pronunciation. That is one thing. Another thing is you are translating something from Dogri to English, then that knowledge will also help once you translate. Because when you study formal linguistics, then you know how words are formed, what type of sounds do we have, and you will also know that how they are used in a meaningful construction. So you can also make a dictionary. Oh, there is no standard dictionary for Dogri, so you can think of, okay, I will compile a Dogri dictionary. Fine. So you can also help in other type of law enforcement. That is the part of forensic linguistics. So forensic linguistics, you study various things, like you observe the language of the victim, and you try to find out whether the person is using is telling truth or not. So those type of psychological tests we also have. So that is applied. You are applying your knowledge into another field. But there is also a pure linguistics, and when you talk about pure linguistics, that means we are talking about formal linguistics, that you try to know how language is formed. That is to say, the sound pattern of that particular language, phonetics and phonology, morphology, and syntax. So this is also one dichotomy that we have. Then another dichotomy that we have is of empirical and introspective. Introspective is like based on your intuitions. What do you think about that particular thing? So that is one thing. For example, you are studying English language, and there is a word like talk, T-A-L-K, talk. And when you make it past tense, then you say it is talked, ed. Then there is a word like walk. Then you can make an intuition that if talk is talked in the past tense, then walk will be walked. So that type of intuition that you can make. So again, it is a guesswork that you can do. But when the verb is read, then you can't say readed. Or you can make an intuition that it will be readed, but you find no, it is not readed, but it is read. Same spelling, but pronunciation is different. So that type of thing is based on your introspection, that you can make a guesswork. Empirical is based on authentic data, that what actually you have on piece of paper, what actually you have in your recording, and based on that you you make your observations, you make your conclusions. So this is again one dichotomy that you have, what type of research is empirical or introspective. So always scientific researches, they are which type of scientific researches are considered good? When they are empirical in nature, because introspective based on intuitions, you can make a guess that okay, this is possible, this is not possible in a particular language. But again, you can make a guess in your office, like at your home, but again you need to cross check that thing. So sometimes introspections, intuitions are correct, and sometimes they are wrong. At the same time, we have certain fallacies. Fallacies means false statement. Now what are false statement? False statements, they are associated with layman thinking about linguistics. When a person who does not have proper knowledge of linguistics, for example, someone says some languages are advanced. French is a melodious language. Fine. Someone says like Dravidian languages are harsh sounding. So these type of statements are fallacies. All languages are advanced, or all languages are of equal complexity. So it is not the case that one language is primitive and another one is advanced. This is not the case. Why it is not the case? Because advancement can happen in science. So there is a possibility that a country has so many satellites, a country has so many robots, a country has so many missiles. So you can say that country is advanced. But it's not the case that because the country is advanced, the science is advanced, then you will say language is advanced. Because when you do experiments, when you invent things, then you need a word for them. So we have a different scientific terminologies. Fine, we have different terminologies related to economics, we have different terminologies related to legal. So that particular, because those fields are there and we need different terminologies, that's why we have different words. So that you can say that there are more words in that particular language and there are less words. So certain culture can be primitive, certain culture can be advanced, but not language. Because if need arises, then the primitive culture language will also invent or discover new words that okay, we will use. For example, computer is an English word, and in Hindi, though in Hindi we have also a word, but that word is difficult to pronounce. It is Sanganak. Now computer means Sanganak. So what do we say? We don't say Sanganak. Though we have a word, what do we say? Computer. We say laptop. So what is this? We adopt. So we can adopt. So this is not the thing that because in Indian languages we do not have a word for iPhone. We do not have word for laptop. Then our culture is primitive culture, or our language is primitive culture. This is not the case, because all these things are depends upon need of the culture. We can adopt it very easily. There is no need to. Computer is very fine. We can pronounce it fine. So that type of thing is there. Then again, it's a fallacy that some languages are beautiful, as someone believes that French is a beautiful language. Fine. Some people believe that Sanskrit is the language of God. So that type of thing is there. If Sanskrit is the language of God, then why many people they are not learning Sanskrit language now? They do not love God. They do not want to learn something that belongs to God. So that's not the case that Sanskrit is the language of God. If it is a language of God, then books are available. Read it, learn it, master it, try to speak it. But anyone is doing? No one is doing. So that's the thing, that these are fallacies. So if you pray in Hindi or in Dogri or in Sanskrit, so or even if you do not pray, so the thing is, like, it's not the case that if you pray something in Sanskrit, then only God will listen or fulfill your demands. So that's not the case. But many people they believe that only if you want to do prayer, and if that prayer is to be successful, then you need to chant the mantras in Sanskrit, otherwise it will fail. So these type of things are related to fallacies. Then some languages have grammar. All languages they have grammar. It is the case that some certain thing in certain language is difficult or different from other language. For example, in Hindi, kal is a word. Kal is for tomorrow. Kal is for yesterday. Khana is for breakfast. Khana is for lunch. Khana is for dinner. But in English, we have different words like breakfast, lunch, dinner, then tomorrow, yesterday. So what you will say? English has grammar, and Hindi does not have any grammar because khana is the same word for all. That's not the case. So certain things are different, but all languages have grammar. So this is for today, and if you have any doubt, you can ask me. We'll discuss.